Take off your shoes before you come into the house. What's in front of us here? What are we looking at? This is a structure like the skeleton of a house. It's a symbol of a house, and it stands for Earth, our planet, our home. Mats lay all around it with objects on them. We're going to look at each one because each tells a story. The story is about how the people of this planet, our home, can overcome our challenges, work together, and achieve peace. This installation has a name. It's called Take Off Your Shoes Before You Come Into the House. Let me explain. Many of us dust off our shoes when we come home before we enter the house. Some of us have to scrape our shoes first, and many of us just take off our shoes altogether because there's just too much mud or snow or dirt from outside. Think of our world as our house, our home, and the challenges faced by humanity as the dirt and mud that really does not belong in our planet or in our home. This art installation illustrates those worldly challenges as shoes in conditions that are holding us all back from a comfortable and secure life. It proposes that when the peoples of the world eliminate those challenges and remove them from our behavior, mankind can move forward into a condition in which justice and unity are a reality, and our home, the world, can be a place where peace is established. The challenges and solutions presented here are principles described in a document from 1986 presented to the people of the world by the governing council of the Bahá'í Faith, the Universal House of Justice. That document is called The Promise of World Peace. The visual interpretations of these principles are, of course, the artists. The narration of this video includes both quotations from this document combined with the thoughts of the artist. Let's look first at the presumptions people make about human beings. Are we strictly material beings, or are we spiritual? While some might describe people by their physical attributes or how they spend their time, does that totally describe who they are? The qualities that many people feel best describe themselves and what we hope to find in others are qualities of the heart, such as love, compassion, perseverance, wisdom, and so on, trustworthiness. And how do we understand our communities, our countries? The time has come when those who preach the dogmas of materialism, whether of the East or of the West, capitalism or socialism, must give account of the moral stewardship they've promised to exercise. Especially, it's in the glorification of material pursuits that we find the roots which nourish the falsehood that human beings are selfish and aggressive. It is here that the ground must be cleared for the building of a new world, fit for our descendants. Will humanity continue to hold to outworn concepts and unworkable assumptions, or we take a step forward with a resolute will and consult together in a united search for appropriate solutions? Let these assumptions and outworn thoughts be swept away and relegated to obsolete and forgotten doctrines. Let's look at war, people fighting and killing each other over plots of earth that they'll eventually be buried under. The need for power, self-aggrandizement, vengeance, giving injury to insult, greed for more land, or whatever the other reason, the taking of lives should not be a decision of one person over another. Every life is a sacred trust, and abolishing war is much deeper than signing treaties. It comes from a moral attitude. Now let's look at this next piece, which shows a fence between sets of children's shoes. This piece is about education. No nation can achieve success unless all its citizens are educated. not one set of children is more gifted than another. What kind of life can children who are deprived of education have? Do they have hope? Can they look to the future with enthusiasm and joy? Will they be steeped in prejudice and ignorance? We're looking at how education can give a bright future to some, and the lack of it holds others back. Of course, even so-called educated people can still have prejudice in their hearts. What is prejudice but judging without knowing? Here, I must quote directly from the document mentioned earlier because of how strongly and clearly it describes racism. Racism, one of the most baneful and persistent evils, is a major barrier to peace. Its practice perpetrates too outrageous a violation of the dignity of human beings to be countenanced under any pretext. Racism retards the unfoldment of the boundless potentialities of its victims, corrupts its perpetrators, and blights human progress. Recognition of the oneness of mankind, implemented by appropriate legal measures, must be universally upheld if this problem is to be overcome. Of course, legal measures are only one level of society to truly eradicate racism. Hearts must change and realize that we are all one human family. Now concerning the nations of the world, everyone belongs to a country. There's nowhere else to go on this planet. Yet people often act as though we live within our own contained space. This is getting more and more difficult to imagine, seeing as how interdependent all the countries of the world are. Consider the countries like the human body. None of the parts live in isolation to the others. Blood and oxygen flow through all parts. Any part deprived of these nutrients dies. A pair of shoes illustrates this here. The shoes are barely recognizable as each declares itself the ruler of each separate section. This reveals what happens when the countries of the world cannot cooperate. Destructive forces tear apart their ability to function together, and they become so disconnected from each other that the whole loses its integrity and becomes unable to function properly. The answer here is not to eliminate culture and make everyone the same. In fact, it encourages sane and legitimate patriotism. Looking back at the comparison to the human body, the body will not exist if the parts are not different. A finger will never be an eye, the stomach and the heart are entirely different organs, and so on. It is in their diversity that their function and beauty shines, and this is what allows them to work together to make one whole. This understanding applies to how the earth itself is treated. The air we breathe, the rain that falls on us, the sunshine that gives life, rivers that flow from their origins into the seas. These are not limited by man-made boundaries, and it's really laughable to think that what happens across borders cannot affect the total environment. More than a century ago, Baha'u'llah wrote, "The well-being of mankind, its peace and security are unattainable unless and until its unity is firmly established." This next scenario will be clear and obvious to many people, especially to the women who experience it. There has been, and for many unfortunates, there is still an ongoing experience in which women are subordinate and even brutalized by men. The emancipation of women, the achievement of full equality between the sexes, is one of the most important, though less acknowledged, prerequisites of peace. The denial of such equality perpetrates an injustice against half of the world's population and promotes in men harmful attitudes and habits that are carried from the family to the workplace, to political life, and ultimately to international relations. There are no grounds, moral, practical, or biological, upon which such denial can be justified. Only as women are welcomed into full partnership in all fields of human endeavor will the moral and psychological climate be created in which international peace can emerge. This is a direct quote from the document mentioned earlier. And here are images of extreme poverty and extreme wealth. The excessive and unreasonable disparity between rich and poor is a source of acute suffering and keeps the world in a state of instability. If a community of any size is to live in peace and security, the injustice of extremes of wealth and poverty must be eliminated. There's nothing inherently more worthy in one person over another. When we all see each other as brothers and sisters, parents and children of one family, we will not tolerate the reality that some starve while others waste, that some earn millions while others earn pennies. This is a deep spiritual challenge that must be addressed on all levels. Where is the justice or the compassion in allowing people to starve? Let's consider partisan politics for a moment. Even when those involved claim to want the best for the people who sincerely want to serve their communities, it still pits two sides against each other and creates rivals out of neighbors. The process encourages backstabbing, bribery, underhanded means for gaining votes, and other negative situations. If people truly want the best for their people, why not search for the truth in every issue and its best solution that will benefit the most, if not all, of the community? There need be platforms that do not allow for evolving knowledge, facts, and realities. Sincere human beings who truly want to serve their fellow men try to learn and grow. They're humble, respectful, and constantly try to discern the truth. They believe in mutual aid and cooperation. This next pair of shoes shows religion, which is a topic that is so sensitive to people. It's true that religious strife throughout history has been the cause of innumerable wars and conflicts. It's been a major blight to progress and is increasingly abhorrent to the people of all faiths and no faith. But can any fair-minded observer discount the huge influence exerted by religion on civilization and its history? Its indispensability to social order has repeatedly been demonstrated. Followers of all religions must be willing to face the basic question which this conflict raises and to arrive at clear answers. How are the differences between the religions among all of them to be resolved in both theory and practice? The challenge facing mankind and its religious leaders is to contemplate with hearts filled with a spirit of compassion and a desire for truth the plight of humanity, and to ask themselves whether they cannot, in humility before their almighty Creator, submerge their theological differences in a great spirit of mutual forbearance that will enable them to go to work together for the advancement of human understanding and peace. There's a very interesting concept that flows through all of religions, and it's called the Golden Rule. The Golden Rule is the teaching that we should treat each other as we ourselves would wish to be treated. And this rule is shared by all the religions of the world from very, very past to the most present. For example, Buddhism says, "Hurt not others in ways that you yourself would find hurtful." Zoroastrian says, "That nature only is good when it shall not do to another whatever is not good for its own self." Judaism says, "What is hateful to you, do not to your fellow men." That is the entire law. All the rest is commentary. All the religions have this law, and this is shown here with this set of shoes. with the difficulties and challenges on the outside of the structure of the home. But the golden rule glides through and wraps around all of humanity, and so it can be the factor which will bring humanity together, and we see the footsteps of all the people of the world coming into the center and finding unity and peace and light.